All right, welcome back into Cherry Picking, everyone. Today's episode, second half bust. We just went over second half league winners, so be sure to check out that video if you haven't seen it already. And as I mentioned in that video, BetMGM Sportsbook, if you're looking to bet on the NHL, definitely the best sportsbook you're looking at right now in terms of NHL bonuses, same game parlay options. They do have it all, so be sure to check the description for that link to sign up. Let's get right into these guys that we're going to be trading away for the second half of the season. Guys, in my opinion, have all been overperforming, and you'll see a consistency between these four players is really high shooting percentages on a volume of shots that isn't really sustainable, in my opinion. So the first guy we're going to be looking at, Bo Horvat on the Vancouver Canucks, centering the top line there, has been playing unbelievable. He's sixth in the NHL in goals, 29 goals so far this season, but I think he's wildly overperforming right now, and he has a huge potential to be a second half bust, in my opinion. For one, the situation in Vancouver, as you must know, it's not really pretty right now. They're blowing leads left and right. Killing the morale of this team. Horvat's contract and his loyalty are in question every time this poor guy talks to the media as well. He's trying to just keep everything kind of in-house too. Thought it'd be figured out at this time, but obviously it hasn't. So there's a potential he moves at the trade deadline here, which in my opinion, would definitely hurt his fantasy hockey value. Realistically, he'll probably go to a cup contender in either Boston or Carolina. Maybe there's a chance he goes to a team like Montreal and builds with a team that will be maybe good in the next couple of years, but I think the more likely scenario is that he goes to a team like Carolina or Boston, and those teams are loaded with offense right now. He's coming into a new system with new players. Most likely, it'll be tough to kind of adjust at first. So that would be worst case scenario. And even if he does end up staying on Vancouver, I still think his numbers aren't sustainable. Like, as I mentioned, 29 goals, 6th in the NHL, on the back of a shooting percentage of 24. That's insanely high. Out of the highest, it was highest among NHL players who are top 10 in the NHL in scoring right now, who have played 35 games. His shooting percentage is way above some of the other guys who I've talked about on this show again and again. You know, realistic shooting percentages, even for the highest skilled guys, Austin Matthews and Draisaitl last year, for example, 17%, 18%. That's like the max you'll see, and they're scoring 60 goals. Horvat on 24% on a shot volume that's not really that high even. And looking at amongst the other guys who are in the top 10 in terms of goal scorers right now, he's sixth, and he has the second fewest individual scoring chances created, and he's 35th in high danger chances so far this season as well amongst all players in the NHL. So I definitely think that Bo Horvat is someone that you should try to trade away if he's on your team. Look, there's guys right now who are further down in the fantasy hockey rankings. If you're looking at Yahoo scoring, he's 23rd. There's guys in the late 30s, or Tavares, Marner, even Bergeron, potential trade candidates for this guy who I think will have better second half seasons than Bo Horvat. All right, another guy who I think is going to be a second half bust this season, Nick Suzuki on the Montreal Canadiens. So looking at his numbers, 41 games played, 15 goals, 19 assists, not that bad, 10 power play points, but he's really started to dip down recently. And to be honest, this isn't even new information. He's been on one of my buy low, sell high videos, definitely a guy to sell high earlier in the season. But this is just a friendly reminder that if he's still on your team, you need to get him off your team right now. His last 10 games, he has 3 points, just 16 shots in those games as well. The downfall was coming for the Habs after their pretty solid start. Kind of knew it wasn't going to last. Their defense are super young. They lead the NHL in defensive zone giveaways, and now this is starting to translate into the offense as well. You're seeing Cole Caulfield have a really good start, obviously. He's still producing a decent amount of goals, but apart from that, Slavkovsky's obviously taking a little bit more time to develop. He's still 18. Suzuki's starting to drop down. Same with Kirby Dach as well. Not a guy that's been playing at the high caliber that they were at the beginning of the season. But looking at Suzuki right now, amongst the other players in the NHL, he's 246th in high danger chances for, 196th in individual scoring chances created, and he has an expected goals rate of just 8. So expected goals rate of 8, and he has 15 goals so far this season. So he is a very skilled player, but I don't think that's going to be sustainable, especially if you're looking at his recent volume as well. It might be hard to sell him right now, but I would just try in any possible way to get him off your team for some sort of value, even if it is like a draft pick if you're in a dynasty league. All right, so the third guy for second half busts, and I know I'm probably going to take a lot of flack for this take, but Travis Konecny, in my opinion, is a prime candidate for a guy who's going to regress in the second half of the season. I think he'll definitely be a second half bust. You'll be able to put that title on him after the end of the season's done. Looking at his most recent games, it's insane. Like he's on a crazy point streak. He's insanely hot. He's 10 games. He has 20 points in his most recent games. But you got to look at all the factors around him. For one, he plays on the absolute shit show that's the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, Kevin Hayes was getting health bombed for no reason like a couple weeks ago. They're starting to play a little bit better right now, but we've seen them go in bursts at the beginning of the season. They were hot for a bit, and then they completely fell off, and now they're scoring a few goals and getting some decent goaltending from one of their new goalies, and then Carter Hart as well. But their offense does stink in general. Like, they're looking at Cam Atkinson's out for the year. Sean Couturier is going to come back at some point, which will probably hurt Travis Konecny's value as well. But they have so many young guys right now. But looking at Konecny's number, his shooting percentage right now is 20. He's 24 goals on 118 shots. So that's not a really high volume, but definitely a high number of goals and a high shooting percentage. And it's way too high for him. Konecny's played 6 seasons in the NHL. He's only exceeded a 13% shooting percentage once, and it was 3 years ago. This whole offense, in my opinion, is overperforming right now. And this team does have a decent amount of skill, but as I mentioned, it's young skill. It's underdeveloped for the NHL level as well. Their shooting percentage over the last 6 or 10 games is 11, which is 6th in the NHL. And that's something that the Flyers don't really stay in that sort of territory. He's right now, Travis Konecny's 86th in high danger chances for amongst the NHL. Has an expected goals rate of 13 on a really bad hockey team. So as I mentioned, I think this whole Flyers team will regress in the second half, and I think it's going to start with Travis Konecny, because if you see the offense start to dip a little bit, he's one of the guys producing right now, so I think it will at some point. And one thing with John Tortorella, this coaching style that he has, very old school, is really good at getting guys on board early. It's a very kind of like hoorah mentality. You're blocking shots, really hard forecheck, hitting a ton. So it's super physical game, but that starts to get old a little bit, especially when your team starts losing a ton of games. Guys start to not buy in anymore, and it's hard to kind of keep guys on the same program, especially these young guys who are just brought up differently in the junior and NHL level than guys used to be as well. So I wouldn't trust anyone on the Flyers in the second half of the season, and especially with Travis Konecny, a guy that you could definitely trade right now, top 50 in fantasy hockey, so he carries a ton of value. All right, so the last guy that you should be trading away, second half bust that you should be staying away from, is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the Edmonton Oilers. Right now, also a top 50 fantasy hockey player, 46th rank when you're looking at Yahoo scoring. He's been terrific, don't get me wrong. Offensive numbers we haven't really seen from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in a couple years, but I don't think that it's going to last in the second half of the season. I think he's at his peak value right now. For one, he has 20 goals on an expected goals mark of 14 and a shooting percentage of 19. That's really high, and numbers that we haven't seen from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins pretty much ever in his career. We haven't seen him exceed a shooting percentage of 13 since 2017-2018 season. So thinking he'll be able to keep up this efficiency, in my opinion, is unrealistic, and the style of game he plays too. His season high in goals is 28. And he's already at 20 right now. So I definitely expect his goal scoring to take a dip over the second half of the season, and especially on a team where they're loaded with offensive talent. Obviously, you have McDavid, Draisaitl. Even on the back end, there's some really offensive defensemen in Darnell Nurse, Tyson Barrie. And then you have Evander Kane, who's been out for a couple months. He's coming back this month as well, or maybe at the end of February. That'll hurt Ryan Nugent-Hopkins' production and probably his time on the power play as well. RNH currently on the third line right now with Warren Foegele and Matthias Janmark. This line doesn't instill a lot of offensive confidence, and you could see it in the numbers as well. You're looking at a team that's ranked 102nd in expected goals for per 60 in the NHL. So that's obviously not a player that should be in the top 50 right now, which in my opinion, why I think he's overperforming and why you should trade him away. So there's definitely a couple factors working against RNH right now. I don't think we'll nearly see as good as the second half as we did first half. Ranked as a top 50 player right now. He definitely carries the absolute peak weight for his value, so definitely try to trade him away as soon as you can. Thank you guys for tuning in. You now have your second half league winners and busts. Make your decisions how you will. Tomorrow's video is going to be breaking down the NHL playoff odds, where they are right now, and what you should be doing with them. We have a very special guest as well. And be sure, if you're looking to sign up for a sportsbook, BetMGM, the links will be below in the description, and I'll see you guys next time.